What's up, everybody? It's your boy George Carmi from the Command the Mic podcast, brought to you by Full Press Coverage. Let's get it on. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us on this lovely Thursday afternoon, or Thursday evening, actually. I'm joined for an awesome roundtable with some of my boys that I talk to every single day in the Commanders chat. Let me start off with my boy Deuce from Red Zone the Lab. Dude, how you doing today, bro?
Good, man. Good, man. Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here too, bro. I'm pass it over to DT from Ins and Out with D. How you doing, D?
Good, man. I'm so excited for this moment. Let's get it.
Let's get it on, man. And last but not least, DH from Breaking Command Podcast. How you doing, bro?
What's up, everybody? In the words of my man Akeem Jaffer, I am very happy to be here.
That's a great intro, man. So, obviously the off season's kicking off. There's a lot of information, a lot of stuff going on over here in Commanders land. Hot topic today. And we're going to start off, coming out hot, man. So, obviously, Daron Payne, he basically was a thing that popped up on our names, popped up on Twitter. People were kind of reporting that he doesn't want to be here. We should potentially trade him, all sorts of information like that. I'm just kind of curious. We'll start off with him as our first roundtable topic. So, Deuce, we'll start off with you, bro. How do we feel about Daron Payne? Do you think we should resign him? Is he part of our long-term plans? What do you think?
Yeah, for me, I think he is. I think he's part of the long-term plan. I also think that when we're talking about Ron Rivera and how he kind of talked about Daron Payne towards the middle of the year, how when he had Star and he had someone else in Carolina, he had a great tandem at D tackle, and he only kept one, and he said that's one of his regrets from his Carolina days is not keeping those two dominant defensive tackles. So either way, I know we're going to franchise tag him. Of course, it all depends on like the money situation, the ownership, and all those things. But I think either way, we're going to tag him. So I think he'll be here next year. And if they make the right moves, what they should do is tag him, and work on a deal and extend them. But we've been here, right?
Nah, I'm right there with you, man. So what's up, Derek? What's up, Jen? I see you guys in the chat. What's going on? DH, how do you feel about that, bro? Do you think tagging Daron Payne's the right move? Do you think we should sign him long term? Like, people saying sign and trade him. How you feeling about all this?
So I think right now, this time of year, right, I seen it on a very popular show called Atlanta, and it's called Lion Season because
Okay.
right now everything, everybody got a different narrative about what can happen. People trying to jock in position to get paydays or to try to throw some nonsense out there to kind of get you to bluff and show your hand. So I think, of course, off the break, I think we should keep him, right? I want to be able to keep the guys that we draft in-house and be able to build what we've built with our defense because he's been a great piece this past year and previous years as well. And, of course, strike while the iron is hot. You play well in the contract year. That's what most people do. That's how you get paid. I think, financially, I believe it can be done. A lot of these franchises can make deals and make it work. But I definitely think as a piece, yes, if you can afford to keep him here, keep him here. I think for any reason other than that, I mean, he's been productive. He's been pretty much a good citizen. He's been a great teammate. And I mean, you don't have any reason to move on from him. Only reason would be if it's just financial.
Yeah, I feel you, man. So someone brought up a good point. So I put up a tweet earlier today about re-signing Daron Payne, making it a priority. And people were talking about how he was a good citizen, like you mentioned, DH. Like he was here all throughout training camp. He didn't hold out. He put his head down, put in the work. So, I mean, there really isn't any reason to kind of hate on him, right? I think he should potentially get paid, big money over here. So, DT, I'm going to toss it over to you, bro. So looking over here, I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is the, interior defensive line contracts. I'll put it up for you guys big if you want. But, thinking about that, DT, do you think we should sign him? And, like, where do you think he'd land in regard to, a contract?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is before the season even started, a lot of discussions on the defensive line, especially for the 2021 season, where they kind of underperform and things like that. And there was questions on who was actually out of the group the worst that to perform, and a lot of people would say Daron Payne due to not really reaching that sack potential and things like that. But I was a true believer in him. I believe he always had that K1 short ability to get to the passer. He just so happened to did it this year, and he had a career high in tackles for loss. Now, when we look at this list and things like that, you got guys like Leonard Williams, Chris Jones, his own teammate Jonathan Allen, Vita Vea. More than likely, he's going to be trying to reach a payment much even better than his own teammate. So I think that's going to be the variation in the contract talks and things like that. To me, I think we're going to tag him more than likely. I think there's going to be some long discussions and things like that financially down the stretch. They probably will tag him and still try to find a way to get this contract stuff done.
No, I'm with you, man. I think that's a good point. So that Kawan short comp's a pretty good one. I think what really sets apart a defensive tackle is going from not being only a run stopper, but being a pass disruptor and basically having that pass rush to go the extra level and having 11.5 sacks. I looked at some stats earlier today. He is, besides Chris Jones is nuts, man. He had 15 sacks this year. But besides Chris Jones, Daron Payne at 11.5 sacks as a defensive tackle, the second most in the league. So 25 years old, coming from Alabama, never misses any game due to health or injuries like that. I definitely think he's in up for a big payday. Deuce, man, where do you think he falls on his pay scale? Man, is he right in front of Leonard Williams? What are you thinking, bro? Are you muted, Deuce?
Rookie mistake, right? I don't know about like any other
it might position,
be position, right? So when I think about the defense and I think about Aaron Donald, right? And I thought he was only making $30 million, but as Harris says, he is at 31.6, and the next person is at 21. Like that's a crazy gap within positions, but that gap is going to close, and we know that Leonard Williams is up for an extension, and Chris Jones. I think Chris Jones is going to be the one that get closer to Aaron Donald, but I still don't think he resets it and surpasses him. I would think that would be crazy for the Giants to do, but I do think even when we think about Jonathan Allen and what he makes, the market moves, right? We know that the market moves every year, and he's going to make more than John Allen, and not because he's better than him, but just because that's what the market tells us, right? Yeah. So that's going to be the thing with him. But I think he's going to be, I think his tag is at like 18.5. So that's the base. Like that's where the conversation started at that 18.5 number. So I think he gets up to maybe like around 22.5 is like where I stop. I don't go past there. Even for some people that might be a reach. But that's where I am when we're talking about the actual deal and where he lands within the other D tackles.
Now I feel you on that. So I want to give a couple of shout outs to the chat. What's up, Derek? He said it's pre-lying season. The official start of lying season is day one of the NFL Combine. I see that, Derek. What's up, Hawk? He says we in the lab. What's good, everyone? So what's up, Hawk? How you doing, bro? DH, real quick, bro. So before we move on to Sam Howell, there's a lot of conversation about like salary cap spending, right? And basically how to kind of like distribute it. What do you think about when it comes to putting too much in the whole defensive tackles? We already paid, we already paid John Allen. Like, do you think there's any merit to that? Like, do you care about that by any chance? Like, how do you feel about the whole, putting too much money in the D tackles?
So I feel like, they kind of forecasted this by drafting Phidarian Mathis last year. But the one thing about the Commanders, and I try to tell this to a lot of folks, that if there's one thing that we do well is draft defensive line. Right, don't really miss with that. So to be able to get production wherever they are in the draft at defensive line has always worked out for the team. I just think that, I just think he's too good to just let go. You know what I mean? And I feel like we have a great rotation with all the guys, like, all the D tackles and D ends. We have a great rotation with all those guys, and I think keeping him here keeps the solidarity together. It can kind of allow you to slow walk Phidarian Mathis back into the fold, and then give you just some crazy matchups and lineups that you can have with your front four on every down. Like literally, like every down you can have somebody different. And as a career offensive and defensive lineman, we get used to repetition, right? You playing guard, you playing tackle, you get used to going against the same guys for multiple snaps a game. When you're able to switch it up on defense and bring different guys in and different situations and really can cause cause some chaos, especially to some of the younger offensive linemen that they will be going against. I think it's just I think it's a great tool to have in your bag. And if you can afford to keep that tool in your bag, I mean, you got to keep it.
No, I love that. That's a great perspective, right? So that I didn't really even consider that. So I love that perspective, DH, is keeping the defensive line fresh, right? You can have Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen. You can definitely rotate them in. Fadarian Mathis definitely is another added component. We didn't even talk about, adding him as a 5-2, as a zero tech, putting him right on top of the center, having that, that whole run defense set up right there. So I like that, man. If the strength of our defense is the front, and, it's that interior line, the defensive line, just keep building that up. And, with a rookie quarterback, we could potentially continue to, build around him is what I really want to go with there. Last question, DT, before we go to Howell. Does having Phil Mathis basically affect you at any point in regard to keeping Payne, or you don't really worry about that?
Well, at first I thought about it. I really saw it when we drafted him as the insurance guy in case Daron didn't live up to the expectations in the season. Mm-hmm. But the injury came in and Daron even balled out. But I also think now that if we potentially bring Daron Payne back, just think about the defensive line right now. You'll have a Chase Young healthy. You'll have Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne back together with Montez Sweat. But then you're looking at your backup defensive line. I think this might be just as good as the guys up there, man. I mean, look at it. James Smith-Williams, a 7th-round pick. He has played very good. You have Casey Toohill. He's just getting around. And you still got Shaka Tony out there. Still a young guy with some speed to himself. And just think about this, too. You got Fadarian Mathis, and you also picked up John Widgway, 2 rookies on rookie deals, and replaced Tim Settle and John Ioannidis. And I really felt like we did not miss a beat when we had those 2 guys, because them 2 guys in the draft, they were like 2 and 3 in the draft in terms of their technique and how they played the game.
We actually did better this year, in my opinion, right? John Allen and Daron Payne had a career year, so I definitely think it's a step up. All right, so let's kind of pivot a little bit. I want to give a shout out to the chat real quick. My boy, I Love Weed, one of the best names on YouTube. He's my Cowboys follower. He's always on here. He's always hyping me up. He said the Commodes need a coach. Ron, not it, just like my guy KM. So he's hating on Ron, so can't really hate on that. Let's take a look over here. Steven from our chat, resign Payne. I'm all about that too. I agree with you. And then I Love Weed one more time. He says, we handed you Ridgeway. So, I mean, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Good looking out, man. I think it's a good addition for us over here. All right, man. So let's kind of pivot, right? It's, one more month until the draft. We have a lot of talk coming up. You guys will definitely be on. We'll talk about it one more time. But Sam Howell, right? So it was funny. I listened to the John Kime podcast. DH is a fan. I can tell right now. Basically... So, I was thinking about it, listening to John Kime's podcast, and, Jordan Reed, who I respect a lot. I think he actually is a very intelligent and awesome scout. He had an honest assessment on Sam Howell. This is what his opinion was. Some people say that he wasn't necessarily prepared for the podcast. He wasn't on his A game. I don't know if y'all agree with that or not. But Deuce, we'll start off with you. We haven't heard from you in a while. This was the tweet that I put out, and I'll read it out loud. Jordan Reed said, I view Sam Howell as a QB2 in the 18 to 22 range. His ceiling would be QB 15 to 20. Think Andy Dalton in his prime. I don't see him reaching Dak level. How do you feel about that? Is that an insult to him, Deuce? Do you think that's a fair assessment? How do you feel about all that?
Like, anytime we're comparing players, and one of the things we were talking about yesterday is comparing players based on body type. Like, don't tell me he fits this mold because the body types is the same. I need more context. Like, I need talent. I need skill. I need to know what that matches, because like Sam Howell could match someone that's like 6'4". They have the same arm talent, this, and that. Don't just say because he's built the same, that's who we're going to compare him to. Like, that's a pet peeve of mine. But also when you're saying someone is not going to be something, someone is not going to get here or get there. Well, give me something where you believe that a player that they will match up to. Like you're saying, he's not going to get to Dak level, but did you believe that Dak was going to get to Dak level when he was drafted? Right? Like, let's have that conversation. Like, before Dak got here, he was at a place. What was your assessment on Dak? Because I think, like, we just get this thing wrong so many times when we're talking about rookie quarterbacks, what they can do, what they can't do, where they draft their 1st round, 5th round, 7th round, and we compare them to this person, to this person. Like, let's see what they can do on the field and assess their NFL talent. You can assess college talent, right? You can do that. You can take what you know and you can apply to what you believe they will be. There's no problem in that. We do that all the time. But don't just tell me someone cannot get to a place based off one game, because I can say, well, I think he's going to be great next year based on just what we saw in the field, and I get ridiculed for that, or I will get ridiculed for that. So on the flip side, I can ridicule you for saying he's not going to be good from what you saw on the field. So I think when we're talking about, comparing players and doing like, we have to kind of wait and see about what they can do. But what we do know, what we seen him on the field that last game and what he did in college. And what he did in college was magnificent. We all know the story. And, I'm not going to talk too much about it because, that's DH guy. And he probably, he has this, this whole silhouette about him, about Sam Howell, man. So, yeah, but that's how I feel. Like, I respect Jordan Reed too, but it's all context. Quotes is kind of, for me, I need to just listen, and I don't like quotes.
I love that breakdown. That's a great breakdown, bro. 100%. I think it's fair, right? So just to recap what you said, you can't necessarily look at body types. You can't necessarily look at projections because you don't really know how the player is going to learn and excel in the pro level, right? So, it's going to be a weird comp moving forward, but Brock Purdy, right? He's actually having a great time right now. He's on a 6-7 game winning streak. He shouldn't be the standard, but, he was Mr. Irrelevant, but now he's actually playing pretty well out in the league, right? So it's going to be pretty interesting.
A lot of front office.
He messed up a lot of front office over there. 100%.
Evaluations, 100%. Man.
We're actually going to pivot to DH in a second. I want to give a shout out to the chat. I love what over here. So Janet's a good people in the chat. She says, Uncle Sam's going to collect your taxes. Uncle Sam's the best nickname in sports. I love that right there. Darren's getting on DT. He says DT got that school vice principal posture, spitting facts. I like that. That's good looking over there. Derek says he's trolling, of course. Let's take a look. Janice says that's an insult. She agrees with you, Deuce. She said that's an insult. I feel like Sam is going to be a Dax level or more. Let's see what Steve said over here. Steve said Howell's success is based on who they bring in as an offensive coordinator. It's a very good point. We're going to talk about that today too. He has the ability to play at a high level in the NFL, but the system is key. I 100% agree with that. I love weed. It's hilarious. I love weed. Jamarcus Russell. I don't compare no more to that. So I don't know where that comes from. So, all right. So let's start off with this. DH, is that a fair comp with Jamarcus Russell to Sam Howell? I don't see that at all, bro. So what do you got over there? Go ahead.
You know why it's not a fair comp? Because Sam has not received that bag yet. So once he gets that bag, then if he flops that way, then cool, I'll call it spade a spade. But let me say this, man. And I know Sam has a lot of criticism for even one game. Right, I'll say this. I'm gonna give you some names, and I want to tell you. I want you to see if you can figure out what this is. All right, Deshaun Watson, future Hall of Famer Eli Manning, and Trevor Lawrence, right, and Sam Howell. What do you think all those names have in common? Any guesses? Don't worry about it. All right, all those guys that I mentioned that are not Sam Howell had less career passing yards in college, right? So you look at it, right? You say, oh well. He didn't have the body of work that some of these other guys like Peyton Manning had or other higher end quarterbacks had, right? But the thing is, you got to get to the dance, to dance. You know what I'm saying? He has to have the opportunity to go out there and prove that he can play ball, right? And I think that's one thing that Sam has done well at every stop. And what I mean by every stop, he flipped from Florida State and came to Carolina, started at Carolina day one, okay? An 18-year-old true freshman started day one. And I'll just throw these numbers out here just for everybody because I'm sure y'all seen them, but I'll just say it again. 10,000 career passing yards in 3 seasons, 92 career touchdowns, only 23 interceptions, okay? And then he had over 1,000 rushing yards in that time frame. I mean, the production did go down, but as you can see, that offense that Phil Longo had in Carolina, every year, they had to get new players because the offense was doing so well. Guys were getting drafted. Granted, they weren't first and second round picks, but Carolina has been filling up the mid and back part of the draft for the past few seasons on offense and defense. But I digress. I'll say this, man. I want Sam Howell to get the opportunity, not because he's my quarterback, not because I've seen every throw, but because I feel as though this is the formula that the team can use to get themselves in a better situation than they've been in the past, right?
I agree.
We've swung for the fences and tried to get big name quarterbacks. We've tried to get reclamation projects. But a lot of times, if I can use a baseball reference, sometimes you got to play small ball. Sometimes you got to get a single. Sometimes you got to get around the bag so you can score, right? And you're in a position right now where you have a 5th round pick that's dirt cheap for you right now. A guy that was the year before would have won the 1st round, but you got him dirt cheap right now. You build around him, let him play out his deal, because you won't have to even discuss money for at least another 2. Come on, man. So I'm just we've tried everything else. Why this? Why? Because unless, and I said this on Deuce's show yesterday, unless it's Lamar, unless it's Patrick Mahomes, unless it's my man from Buffalo, unless it's like guys like that, you're not getting them guys. So unless you can get it, you might as well work with what you got here. So that's the thing, man. We've tried, the franchise has tried to get a franchise quarterback for years and years and years. They've tried the big money route. They tried everything else. This fell in your lap. Take this, build on it, because I believe, even if that comparison is correct, a 18th ranked quarterback with our defense and the skill positions that we have can get you knee deep in the playoffs, which is what Brock Purdy is doing this year, because he's not doing anything special, ladies and gentlemen. He's okay, but he's playing within the scheme, and that's true. That goes to it as well with the offensive coordinator. If you got somebody that can scheme it up for him, he can look great, and that's what it is, man. You try to put everything together at the right time and make it work. But I'm gonna go ahead and take a back seat because I've said already too much. But
no, man, I love it. I love it, bro. I love it. I think you're right, man. I think the winning formula in the NFL is to build around a rookie quarterback, right? You got to get that rookie quarterback deal. You build up the talent around them. You build a solid team, and then potentially you drop in a quarterback later on the road if your rookie doesn't work, right? Another wonderful thing that I heard you say was Sam Howell playing at age 18. For those of you that don't know about this, player profiler has a breakout age, and they kind of show, like, what age people kind of break out with in relative to their peers. There's a strong correlation to, like, the younger you are, if you're thriving at a younger age, you're more likely to have success as you get older, because think about it, bigger bodies and people that are your peers that are older than you and things like that, more experience. If you can thrive younger, you're more prone to be successful in the future. So I like that, man. So it's good looking out. DT, man. So what are you thinking, bro? So Sam Howell, are you worried about that comps? Is he the QB of the future? How do you feel about him?
Well, the thing about the comps, right? They usually point out to what they could potentially be, what they probably can fall into, and a lot of people have always said, like, the Baker Mayfield or like Case Keenum, like he could be those type of guys. But I think the strange thing about it is I just need to see him play, and 19 pass attempts is not enough in the National Football League to let you know what type of player he is. Now, this guy, we all know, he came from North Carolina. He was supposed to be a first round pick. Things probably didn't go his way, probably in the draft process. I don't know what went wrong in the draft process, but a lot of the guys also said, Jordan Reed and Matt Miller, they said they projected him as a day 2 guy, but the Commanders got him on day 3. That's probably the biggest value you probably have ever seen that this team has done, especially for a guy this talented. And I think the conversation with everybody is like, yeah, we still need to go get a quarterback and things like that. Well, if this guy was drafted on day 2, we would be way more excited about giving him an opportunity to flex his muscle and be the guy. But because he was drafted on day 3, now it's like, I don't know, man. I mean, have we really seen a 5th round quarterback? But let me give you these numbers in the NFC.
Numbers, let's go.
Let's go with the numbers, man. I mean, like, look at how many sacks are like 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round. Like, these guys are starting in the NFC, and all the gauntlets, all the juggernauts are in the AFC. So I'm looking at the NFC right now. I ain't got to deal with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, Joe Burrow putting on 40 points. I'm sitting in my room crying because I'm like, oh my God, I'm trying to get a quarterback. I got a young guy with a good amount of players around him that he can probably play up to his potential, just like at North Carolina. He has 3 wide receivers, potentially 4 if De'Ami Brown gets some burn. You got some young tight ends that could get some shots. 3 running backs. I don't know what they're going to do with JD McKissick. That's a conversation for another day. And you just improve the offensive line. We have something we can do. The biggest key for Sam Howell will be who will be the offensive coordinator that can cater to his strengths, to the weapons, and try to help him not make the most mistakes out of themselves. I think this team is set up to get in the playoffs next year. Me personally, I know people's trying to see it as a lame duck season, but there's so much parity in the NFL right now with so many things going on. The Dallas Cowboys, the Bears are number 1 pick, things like that, Justin Fields and things like it's so many moving parts. And even Aaron Rodgers, we don't even know what's going to happen to Aaron Rodgers this offseason. There's going to be a chance for this Commanders team to get a chance in the playoffs.
100%, bro. What I liked about your first point was Sam Howell, 5th-round pick. It changes expectations. I actually think that's a good thing, right? I think like if he was a first or second, if he was a 2nd-round pick, 1st-round pick, there would have been a lot of pressure to put him in and to play him and to give him that game time. And like if he struggled, get on him a little bit, right? I think being a 5th-round pick, there is a little bit of a leash to let him grow, to watch him unfold a little bit, and I kind of like that. I think that's going to be more healthy for him long term. People kind of hate on the fact that he made a sat all year long, but maybe that was what he needed, right? Like we've never been patient with the quarterback in DC. We tend to throw them in first couple weeks. You know, when things start losing, we put him in there. It's a bad situation for him. So we'll see how it all plays out.
And
so,
I'll add this too. I think the thing about people getting mad about him sitting, like when Patrick Mahomes sat, they're like, why did Patrick Mahomes sit? Even though he had Alex Smith, it's the little things when it comes to being a quarterback in the NFL. Like Patrick Mahomes, when he got in the NFL, he didn't know how to take a snap under center. And he didn't know how to call plays in the huddle, things like that. Sam Howell, like he didn't really do that stuff as much in college. And you're trying to get him to do that stuff in the NFL level with NFL concepts and NFL players. So I think we have to afford him that opportunity.
Definitely, man. I agree with you. So let's look at the chat real quick. So first of all, we got a new listener today. I appreciate it. Terrence, what's up, bro? So it's an evening, gentlemen. I was brought here by the Command This podcast. Eagle fan here, but I respect the division and what others have to say from their perspective. Much appreciated to be here. Much appreciated to have you here, bro. Thank you for coming. I appreciate that, bro. Real quick. So you guys, what's up, Marcus? I see you in the chat as well. And my boy over here, dude, Roger Smith is always here. I love it. It's a great pivot to our next conversation. So what's up, Roger? I'm going to read your comment right here. Roger says, you know, and DT kind of alluded to it as well, offensive coordinator, right? Put Sam in a similar offense like the Eagles, a smash mouth RPO offense to use his legs, power run game from under center formations, along with the pistol formation, use play action to go deep to a wide receiver. So that's a great point, right? So obviously, you know, the Commanders are in the market for an offensive coordinator. So we're going to go to our next topic, OC and DC, right? So let's start off with this. DH, we'll start off with you, bro. We haven't started off with you on the topic. So let's go over here. So, you know, there's been a lot of, Studesville's come in, what's his name? There's plenty of coordinators. Anthony Lynn's been reported now.
I had interviews too.
What's that? Get out of here. Yeah, all these Madden players are all trying to be offensive coordinator now, right? So, anyways, who's a favorite, man? Who do you use number one choice for offensive coordinator in your opinion?
Oh man, so I'm kind of torn, right? Because I want them to go young and innovative, but truthfully, because I don't know what's going on upstairs, I don't know how long they would even be here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Ron Rivera may do the typical Ron Rivera move and get somebody that he's more comfortable with versus giving somebody a new opportunity to do that. I did hear Studesville name floating around, but he has a familiar relationship with Ron already. Really, truth be told, honestly, whoever's here, just as long as they have a better play calling scheme than Scott Turner. Yeah, like and I'm not even joking. Like I'm so serious about it because I feel like anybody, if they can call plays better than what Scott did and really focus on the weapons that you have, I feel like we'll be fine with anybody. And truly, if this year, if Ron and them are saying that we want Sam to start and Sam to be the guy, whoever it is, whether they're here for 1 year or 10 years, they need to be able to cultivate Sam's abilities and really put him in the best position to win because you're going to be attached to him. You're going to be attached to him because let's say Sam comes out next year and balls out, right? And like DT said, let's say we're built and we make the playoffs and we go, into the second round of playoffs. That OC may not be here anyway because they like, yo, you was able to take him. You might be the quarterback whisperer. Like, we don't know, right? So I think you could throw any name out there as long as they're team first and really going to focus on getting all our guys in the right position to make the best plays and to cultivate some of these relationships and this growth with the team. I'm all for it. So
you're open.
OCX, whoever you put in there, I don't care. Just score in the red zone. Whoever.
The one thing that was interesting to me, and I've been peeping it over the past couple of weeks, is that as it's funny, right? Everyone's kind of nice to Scott Turner when he's here, and once he's getting fired, all the players start coming out, kind of saying little whispers here or there, right? What I found pretty interesting is when they were criticizing Scott Turner, they were saying that he wasn't a good teacher, right? He wasn't a good instructor. He wasn't good at getting his concepts out. I think that's very important for Sam Howell. I think he needs to learn these concepts, learn the NFL game. I want consistency, right? I've been watching Washington for over 30 years, guys. It's like, Justin Campbell, Patrick Ramsey. They're getting offensive coordinators. You flipping them over and over again. They're not getting stability, and they're getting, their brain becomes mush. They need some consistency. And I actually read somewhere recently that like the best way that a quarterback can thrive is like year 3 in a system. Like after they're there for 3 years, they finally get it. It makes sense there. So I am hoping for that for Sam Howell. I think he needs that consistency. DT, who do you like, bro? Who's the OC that's in your favor right now?
Consensus wise, it has been Thomas Brown for the past couple of weeks. I like the energy he brings and things like that, but I don't think they will go that route. I feel like this team is a lot of pressure this year, especially when new ownership lurking around the building and things like that. I think they're going to go with a veteran route. And if I'm looking at a veteran and obviously a guy with ties to Ron Rivera and the Andy Reid tree, I think Pat Shermer makes the most sense. And I think for him being a quarterback whisperer, working with a lot of quarterbacks and things like that, I think this one stint, it really intrigues me. He was in Philadelphia under Chip Kelly. He helped Nick Foles produce and had one of the craziest seasons in NFL history, 27-2 touchdown. Now, I'm not saying how going to get those type of numbers, but I think him understanding that Nick Foles had spread concepts that he loved when he was at Arizona, I think that fits what Sam Howell does. Getting the ball out of his hands quick with the wide receivers. It's still a modernized West Coast spread for Sam Howell. I think when you heard rhythm offense from Jordan Reed on the podcast with John Kahn, first thing that screamed in my head was West Coast. And there's a lot of guys that run that West Coast. I know Studfield's run it, but I think Pat Shermer, we have seen his track record with the quarterbacks with Case Keenum, even Daniel Jones. I think that's a good fit for Sam Howell at his youth. He's only like 22 right now. I think that's a good guy to help him develop.
Yeah, I agree. He's kind of a corporate. He can Case Keenum. He actually was the spearhead that get Case Keenum to the NFC Championship with the Vikings. He has nothing comparable to that. Since then, he's been a good coach in regard to that. I think he also like helped out with Teddy Bridgewater and developed him there as well. So there's definitely some Pat Shermer momentum there. Seeing some comments in the chat. Derek, this is like an inside joke in our chat over here. Please don't say Roman is what Derek said over there. What's up, Derek? I'm gonna throw it over to Deuce in a second. Deuce, question for you. I want to hear your opinion on the OC, and I also have a question for you, right? So, Marcus, thank you for joining the show, Marcus. He said his choices are Pep Hamilton, Anthony Lynn, and Thomas Brown. I like those. I think they're all pretty interesting as well. What I like about Thomas Brown is he comes from that McVay tree. He's a tight ends coach. You and I are big Logan Paulson fans, Deuce. So we basically know that, like, I think the tight end is actually coaches are great, right? Because they know about protections and run games and also the passing game. It's like almost trifle. They have all of that, right? We'll start off with this. Thomas Brown has never called plays before, right? He's never called plays. Does that scare you at all? And, would you want him as your offensive coordinator? If not, then who?
So when it comes to tight ends, right, we see how like those guys are smart. And yes, Logan Paulson, he can't do no wrong in my book. If he said it's right, it's gold. You know what I'm saying? Like if you say anything bad about him, if we in a space, I'm booting you out. And you also think about Greg Olsen, right? That's another guy. Like we hit him on Sundays, and he's just so smart. And in that position, yeah, I'm a Logan guy. That position sees everything, right? They have to know where to go. They need to know the O-line protections because they are very important to that. They need to know where all the wide receivers is going to be because they run routes. They have to make sure that they hitting the seams right, they sitting in the holes right, and they have to know blocking protections, especially if you're in an offense where it calls for pre-snap motions with tight ends where they go back to fullback and they motion here and motion there. And one thing that we saw this year with Armani Rogers is that he took a reverse. You know what I mean? So the tight end position is very important. Now, to say this about Thomas Brown and like with our fan base, right? And I kid with some people is that no one was saying nothing about Thomas Brown until they put the hype video out. Right. Remember,
That's a good point.
Remember the hype video? Nobody was talking about Thomas Brown until they put the hype video out. And all we need is all other 31 tight end coaches to put out hype videos, and that's who we want on our team. But actually look at his body of work, and his body of work is very impressive. No, he has not called plays, but he has been in the room. But one thing that we have to talk about Thomas Brown, which I don't think anyone brought up, is that they have an OC job open too, and he has not been interviewed for it. Now, why is that? Right? Why is that? So that's something that we have to think of, because we know McVay, he's loyal, he brings people up, he does things just like with Shanahan. Like they like to hire and promote from within for the most part. That's why San Fran gonna have a comp pick for like the next 3 years just because of their coaches, right? So, but that's something we have to think about. Why hasn't he have an interview? And it's not like the Rams in the playoffs, right? They could just, I mean, his office is right down the hall, I guess. You know what I mean? So that's something to think about when we think about Thomas Brown. Now, like for me, ever since they fired Scott Turner, right? Sam 48 said it was 11 people, only a few that we know of actually came out and said they expressed frustrations with the offense. And I thought that was kind of strange coming from a Ron Rivera team, because that's really never happened before, right? So I when that happened, I said, oh yeah, he's done. I always want to be enemy, and this is the reason why.
I love being enemy.
The reason why is that for this job, I always thought it's going to be someone that's willing to take a 1-year rental to improve their resume for the head coaching market, or to improve their candidacy for that pool and for 2024. And when you think about Bieniemy, what's really not checked, right, is does he call plays? Andy has told people he called plays. He's telling them he called plays. No one believes that. So that's the last box that needs to be checked. And who does Ron go to as a mentor in the NFL for coaches? Andy Reid, right? So he will know. And Bieniemy can come here. He has his offense. He has these great skill players that we have, and there will be no questions about who's running this offense, because Ron is a defensive guy. So it's going to be Bieniemy. I think he could come here. He can be successful running the offense, even if we don't win, even if the ownership comes in and they fire everybody, whatever the case may be. He can still show that, hey, look, this is the last box. It's checked now. Now let me go into this head coaching market, and I shouldn't have any questions.
I'd love that, right? I think Andy Reid is one of the most, I think, is a Hall of Fame coach, to be honest with you. I heard an awesome stat the other day. He's taken his team to 10 different conference championships, 5 in each league, right? 5 straight with the Kansas City Chiefs, and 5 with the Eagles, right? So taking a piece of that branch is definitely the way to go.
George, and look, he shows no emotion on the sideline.
Yeah, that's true. that's a knock on Ron. We always hear about that about Ron, right? So that's interesting. But it's like I love that. I think like Andy Reid and Ron together, they're close. I think they definitely pick each other's brains right there. So I like that. That would be a good opportunity. So I hope he jumps on it. And I think from what I understand, the only time we could ever interview him would be during that whole Pro Bowl week. Like it would be after this week. It'd be next week because they have that time off. So that'd be pretty interesting. Let's do a couple questions real quick, then we'll move on to our couple, last topic or so. What's up? Steven is in the chat. He said, good talk, gents. I appreciate that. DT, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. I don't know how you feel about this one. Marcus in the chat. He says, I trust Ken Zampese to work on Sam Howell's game. How do you feel about that?
I do trust Ken Zampese to work on Sam Howell's game. I think his track record speaks well. And I think, to me, in my opinion, even though we interviewed Zampese, in my opinion, I feel like Zampese doesn't really want to be the offensive coordinator. I think he's very content with working with young guys like that. Anytime you have 2 vet quarterbacks like Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz, and you have a young guy like Sam Howell, who at the time was 21, you can take your time and mold him, get some extra time, work with his footwork, and show him how coverages are being shown to these players and things like that. And I think he's one of those guys whose track record speaks for himself. I mean, he even had Baker Mayfield looking good. Now, I know he's been bouncing around the league and stuff like that, but anytime you are pushing and making these quarterbacks exceed their expectations, I think that's really a good thing for a guy like Sam Howell.
Gotcha. Go ahead,
G, let me just add this, man. I think this hire could be very important to how the future of the franchise goes, because I've been on the boat of, I feel like the only way Ron Rivera and staff stays unless it's a deep playoff run, right? But if not, if you have a hot coordinator, somebody like a Byron Leftwich or somebody like Bieniemy, if you have a smart new ownership group that comes in, they may be more apt to keep one of those guys, especially if we perform well next year. Because like, and the fact that Byron Leftwich got fired is ridiculous, right? The Shannon Sharp said it best. Tom Brady fails and everybody else get fired. That doesn't make sense. Like, he should be the coach of the Jaguars right now, but he didn't take that job because he wanted full control and they wasn't going to give it to him. So somebody like that, I feel like it's more than 1 year for him. Somebody like Bieniemy, I feel like it's more than 1 year with them. I feel like if they come in, it could be like a coaching waiting type situation, unless we just play well. Because I've always felt like we've been talking about this recently that Ron Rivera, he's not a, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like he's an X's and O's guy anymore. Ron Rivera is a great leader. Like, he's a leader,
culture guy.
He is like he can probably mediate when things are going down. He's a guy you look to, but he has position guys that can, coach and do everything for him. So I feel like the front office is already in place. I feel like that may be something as well. Like, Ron is so well liked around the league. He might just could be like, look, if the enemy's in here, like, Eric, I'm gonna give you the reins. I'm gonna go upstairs, continue to be the VP and player personnel stuff, because I want to see this front office really get a chance to like have a couple more drafts under their belt, because Martin Mayhew, I'm a big Martin Mayhew guy, and Marty Herney, they've done some things well in the past. They've also done some bad things, but I feel like they need a full cycle of 3 to 4 years of the front office to actually get their guys in and make some of those mistakes that Ron Rivera has been allowed to make already. You know what I mean?
No, I feel that's a good point, right? That the whole Bruce Arians realm, right? He basically did that in Tampa Bay. He basically he pivoted and he gave Todd Bowles an opportunity to be a head coach. I can definitely see that there. All right, so let's do a couple more. Let's do 2 more questions before we can start wrapping it up. So I want to pivot to more of like a global perspective and go to the NFL, right? So, selling DC, right? So my perspective is this: we have an offensive coordinator position that's open. Where does it fall in the big landscape across the league, right? So if you look at that little ticker on the bottom, Baltimore, Tampa Bay, Arizona, the Chargers, Colts, Washington, we're all looking for OC. Where do we? What's the most appealing offensive coordinator position, and what's the least appealing offensive coordinator position? What do you think, DT? We'll start off with you, bro.
Well, if we're looking at this, these graphics and things like that, obviously you have to put the Chargers and Baltimore up there because they're the ones who have quarterbacks and potentially will have the quarterback depending on the Lamar Jackson situation. Then you look at Tampa Bay, Tom Brady will probably be gone, but you still have a good structure in terms of the weapons like that. The Colts, something about the Colts job, man. I don't know. I think they need a little bit more on the outside. I think they need more help on the outside. I'm kind of worried about Jonathan Taylor, the mileage he took this year. And Arizona, Kyler Murray injury is huge. You're going to have to get a bridge guy that can help stable the ship. And I think Washington is somewhere around probably 4 or 5. I mean, I think we're not that far off. I think offensive line and quarterback play and offensive coordinator, those are the 3 marriage points that has hurt our season why we didn't get to the playoffs. So I would put us around 4 or 5.
All right, that's pretty interesting. I agree with you there. Up to the Command This podcast, Phil, Dev, Steve, what's up, guys? How you doing? Thank you for dialing in. I appreciate that. All right, so I think we're on the right track, right? So Tampa Bay, Baltimore. I think the Chargers is probably the most appealing one. Justin Herbert as a quarterback right there. I like their weapons. People aren't really high on Eckler. I think he's a great all-around back. Like, he's not a power back, but he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So I like him there. I'll pull up the graphic again. Deuce, what are you thinking, man? Where does Washington land on the offensive coordinator spectrum right here?
Yeah, so I think the head coach also matters, right? Like the head coach who some of these teams are going to hire to run their programs. I'm quite sure a lot of those guys are going to bring people with them or whatever. But the Arizona job is real tricky to me, right? I think they paid a quarterback that I really would not have wanted to pay. I think the pressure was on. I think they used it. Well, what else do we have? What else can we get? It's so hard to find a franchise quarterback. And when you get close to it, you don't have to pay. And they paid him early too. So that's another thing. So now you have someone that's going to come in there that's not going to have their franchise guy for a full year, maybe more. If the rumors are true about his work ethic, he probably come back 20, 25 pounds heavier. But that's a different story. But like the Chargers, for instance, I think when you're looking at the Chargers, I think that's also a rental job, to be honest.
Yeah,
Staley was real close to being fired. And I believe that's what Payton wanted. I think that's the real job that Payton wanted.
Yeah.
And I don't think Payton, I don't think he chooses a team this cycle. I think he waits another year. But that job I look at as also a rental. The same with Baltimore, the same with Tampa Bay. Like all these teams that have head coaches in place that fired their offensive coordinator are really possible rental jobs. So I think that puts us in a better, fair playing field when we talk about trying to bring in I would say like the more innovative or the coaches that have the better resumes, the top candidates. I think this put us in a level playing field when you're looking at those jobs like that. So for me, I have us up there, and just like what DH said about Ron Rivera, possibly moving up. I just think Ron Rivera, the GM, and the coach, when they're together, when they're talking together, they are bad. They're really just bad. I think Ron, the GM, is better. I think Ron, the coach, is not good. But when they're together, they're both just bad. But appealing, I think we're up there, man. I really do, because I think we're on a level playing field. Because I think most of those jobs you look at it as 1 year rentals. That might be why it's taking so long to actually fill these positions.
They got fired for a reason, right? Obviously, that they did something wrong, right? And on top of that,
they
got fired. And then on top of that, we have some good skill position players. We have Jahan Dotson. I can't wait to see him year 2 and having a full 17 games right there. Terry McLaurin, we know he's a beast. Curtis Samuel, Brian Robinson, a full season. It's gonna be interesting to see that out. So before I throw it over to DH, let me kind of look at the chat real quick. Our boy Steve in the chat, he says Baltimore, LA Chargers jobs are the most interesting. Derek says Washington is 3 or 4, depending on how you feel about Indy. I think Indy's kind of a mess right now. I think there's a lot going on over there.
I mean, George, even Baltimore, like what's going to happen with Lamar, right? If they tag Lamar and if Lamar's playing chess, they tag him, he go have that surgery. We're going to be right back here next year, right? So like even that job, like what happens with Lamar? Because if he's not playing, then that job is not so, intriguing anymore.
I'm with you. Our boy,
I don't want no success to come to the coast, but that's a different story.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I got the little vibe with me too. I feel you, bro. All right, so Terrence, one of our new listeners, he said definitely a few pieces away. Talking about the Commanders, I do believe that the franchise will adapt to whomever is the new owner, which I hope we have. To see what you guys have, get the players you need, and work off of that. If it fails, start over fresh. I agree with that. Let me pull up Roger. Roger's my boy. Roger says, I want all of them gone. Ron, both the Martys, the whole staff, and the front office. Ron isn't a good evaluator of talent. They're too slow to adjust. They are a day late and $1 short. Okay. All right, Roger's not pulling any punches at all. Steven, our boy in the chat, facts Roger's chat. Facts. He's all hyping up Roger over here. And
that's
then
nasty, Mayo.
That is nasty work right there. All right.
Nasty,
and then over
Mayo.
here. And then he says, some might see this as a suicide mission, joining over the Commanders. All right, DH, real quick, bro. How do you feel, man? So what do you think is the most appealing job, least appealing job?
So if you look at every team you put on the graphic, right,
mm-hmm.
there's either instability at the head coaching position or the quarterback position, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like out of all those positions, we may be in the driver's seat because they're telling you Sam Howell's a quarterback, and we know that at least they might let Ron Rivera finish his full contract, which would be this season and the following season. I feel as though the worst job is the coach job, and Deuce right there with you. We lock and key with that, brother. I think the Colts are in disarray, and I think a lot of it gets covered up because they just don't care to talk about Jim Irsay as much as they care to talk about us. But I think he's done some things that have been on Snyder level that I'm sure it's another conversation for another day. But I think the coach situation is in disarray. Yeah, that part. the situation is in disarray. And you look at it, I mean, you just look at the trajectory of both franchises, right? The Colts had their glory years, which were recent than ours were, but they've been trying to hit the quarterback thing for the past couple of years as well, and they've been missing as well. I think if you had to put us between those two, I think we're the better destination. I feel as though we have a all-around better team than the Colts. They have a better building, I'll say that. but but we're a better squad. So I think with all those teams, there's a lot of instability at the quarterback or the head coaching position. Even with the Rams, those situations, like, is Baker going to be the guy next year? We know McVay is going to be there, or he may be there. He may change his mind next week. But is Baker going to be the guy? With the Chargers, like Deuce said, is Staley going to be a 1-year rental situation? Because I just knew Staley was going to get fired. I knew. I tweeted it and I pinned it. I was like, Staley going to get fired after this game. You know what I mean? Because he was already on the hot seat. And then you look at a lot of these jobs where you got to fill the head coaching role first. You know what I'm saying? Arizona needs a new head coach. You look at just a lot of these other teams that may need quarterbacks. It's just it's a lot. So I said all that to say that I think we're the most desirable location because I'm being a homer. So that's why.
There you go. Perfect. All right. So let's kind of look. All right, here we go. Look at the chat real quick. Well, Terrence is a funny comment, right? He says the Indian owner being like, ooh, wee. He's being like, ooh, wee over there. But I mean, I think we all kind of know that. You're kind of offline over there. All right. Very good. All right. Steve or whoever, Dev, Phil, one of the guys from command of this. DH's picture hanging job is appealing to my OCD. That's a fantastic job right there. Man. So cool. I agree. It's sharp. It's just sharp right there. Perfect. All right. Let's try to get this done. I want two more questions to get this done under an hour, right? So let's not knock us out real quick. Big games, man. I love football. I know you guys do too. That's why we're here, right? So let's talk about the 49ers and the Eagles. We don't have to go too deep into it. I just want to hear your initial thoughts. A couple round real fast over here. DT, man, who's going to win this game?
To me, this game is going to be like underratedly a defensive juggernaut. I think these guys, they're going to come in this game. They're going to knock each other silly. I think the key factor will be obviously which run game gets going a little bit better. Obviously, we know what's Kyle Shanahan do. He shows you one play, and then he runs it multiple times in a different variation. And then where the Eagles, their offensive line is really legit. I'm going to be keeping my eye on the interior for the 49ers. They're good, but I don't think they are Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne good. I think that's going to be a big matchup for me to keep my eye on, especially for the quarterback play. Which quarterback doesn't make the big mistake and which try to do themselves to get the win? And to me, I think the 49ers, they're a little bit more complete. I think they're going to make some plays against Jalen Hurts and them. And I got the game 26-20.
Okay. And so the Eagles are going to win 26-20. What you said, right?
The 49ers will win 26.
49ers. All right. Interesting. Okay. All right. Deuce, what are you thinking, bro?
For me, I think it's going to be it's not going to be a defensive game. I think it's going to be some great defense played, but I think Philly's going to be able to put up some points. I think their O-line is good enough to really test that secondary of the 49ers. The one thing that I caution Philly is to really pay attention to their RPOs and Hurts running the football. I think they need to really game plan for that. I think they need to put him on some type of restrictions during the RPOs, because one thing the 49ers linebackers, they are fast and they hit as well as they safeties. And if he's upright, they're going to put the pads on him continuously, because Brown, after that game, even during that game, Brian Robinson was taking a beating. That was like his welcome to the NFL game right there, because they put a beating on him. They were doing things like laying on him, like putting shoulder pads on him right before he hit the ground. I mean, they did that and that was game plan. That was game plan for them.
That's that gray area dirty play, but that's smart play. That's what you're supposed to do, man. That's what you're supposed. That's in a division game right there.
You had Andrew Norwell and Trey Turner as well. Let's be real; they were on the ground.
No. It wasn't really about like getting holes or anything like that. It was just like when they hit him hard, and they were laying on him, right? And I think that's what's going to happen with Jalen Hurts, is that they're going to put pads on him. Those guys are extremely fast. Their change of direction is elite. So even if they bite a little bit on the RPO, they can get back outside. So I think that's where the game is going to be won. I think Shanahan's going to do a great job of protecting Brock Purdy, like he's done Jimmy over the years. And I think he's going to put him in positions not to fail, not to make mistakes. But if they get down early, that's going to be a problem. If the 49ers get down early, But ultimately, I'm going to go with the 49ers. I don't think a game is going to get over 20. I think the 49ers score a defensive touchdown. So I'm going to go like 17 to like 14, somewhere in that range. I mean, it may change. Still got some time, but that's where I'm going with that game.
I love the chess match perspective you have with the linebackers of the 49ers and Jalen Hurts. I do think Jalen Hurts is the difference, right? Like, and I'm also keeping my eye on Purdy. Like, is he going to fall back down to earth, right? Like, you can't be perfect for too long, right? So there's going to be that one thing. And the Eagles defense is kind of slept on. People are like, oh, the Eagles defense is not that good. They have great pass rushers. I think Hassan Reddick had 18 sacks this year. Like, I mean, it's a lot going on.
But you know what, George? Let me give you a stat, and it might be not so accurate. So the Eagles had 70 sacks, right, on the year, right? They had 70 sacks, right? Yeah. So out of those 70 sacks, I think 3 of those games they had like 30 sacks in 3 of those games,
like 10 sacks a game or something like that.
Some games they had like 6, 7 sacks, and 5 out of those games, I think they had 47 sacks out of those 5 games.
So it wasn't distributed.
So you put that
a couple games that blew up.
So you kind of put that in perspective when you're talking like for that Eagles defense, which I thought was very interesting when I saw that stat when it comes to their D line.
I got you, bro. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Roger got a good point, too. We said Dre Greenlaw is the key to the 49ers victory. He must run with the Goddard up the seam in that cover 3, shoot the gaps and run fits and spy Jalen. So in addition to Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, man. Fred Warner's one of the I played linebacker in high school. Guy I love watching him play. He's the guy you put on the film. Like, that's how you play linebacker, in my opinion, right there. Let's kind of pick up the pace, DH. So I'm going to throw you to the AFC game real quick, right? So unless you really are got your heart set on the 49ers, Eagles. But we'll go Bengals, KC. What do you think? Who's going to win the game there?
Man, this is tough. I think this is a pick'em game. The Bengals play well in the playoffs, man. Like, and last year they're proving that last year was not a fluke. They're definitely a January team. They play well down the stretch. I think it's a push, man. I think it could go either way. I think I might take the Bengals, man. I don't know how hurt Mahomes is. I think if they're able to get to him and attack him a little bit, they may be able to frustrate him a little bit. And those magical throws he may not be able to make because he may not have his mobility. So I think the Bengals may get it, man. They sound real confident. They've been talking a lot of cash this week. And I mean, I just think it may be the Bengals' turn to run it back. And I'll say this real quick. They're only giving 2.5 for that 49ers Eagles game, so I think that's a close one too. My lock, I got a parlay. It's George Kittle to score twice and Boston Scott to score twice. Okay, lock that in at 41,977 odds. $10 to get your 4K. Lock it in.
Why not? Roll the dice, right? It's gonna hurt, right? All right, so looking over here, over here it says the Eagles can't stop the run for real. Oh, that's a different one. Sorry about that. LaTerrence basically said 27-17 the Bengals. That's what he says over here. We'll finish it off on DT. Last question, right? So I'm gonna ask you about KC and the Bengals. The Bengals are very confident. I don't know if you guys heard the whole talk going on today. Burrowhead Stadium, they're 3-0 and all that. Do you believe in the hype? Do you think the Bengals are going to win? How do you feel, DT?
Obviously, we all know the world's going to be looking at Patrick Mahomes' ankle. I think it's kind of crazy that Joe Burrow and them boys been having Mahomes' number, man. But I'm just going to say this. If Patrick Mahomes find a way to beat that Bengals team on one leg, just pencil him in as one of the greatest to ever do it, man. But ultimately, I just think this Bengals team is way different. They're a little bit better. I'm going to have to go with the Bengals 34-27.
All right, good looking. I think Patrick Mahomes, when he's healthy, man, I was like, you watch good quarterback play. We saw Trevor Lawrence is not a good quarterback. We saw him kind of developing. You saw, who else we saw? We saw Josh Allen. We saw Joe Burrow in that, that little matchup there. Then you saw Patrick Mahomes when he was healthy and athletic and scrambling and throwing the ball. He's another level, man. He's truly elite. So I think his health is going to play a game. Fellas, I had a pleasure, man. You guys are really, smart on top of it. Good conversation. I really enjoyed all of that. So that was a fantastic dialogue over here. What I want to do is I want to pass around the mic. I want you guys to hype up your social, the projects you're working on. We'll definitely promote you right here. So we'll start off with Deuce, man. Where are you at?
Yeah, wherever you are, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Red Zone in the Lab podcast. Just type that in. Website, redzoneinlab.com. You can find me on Twitter, on Spaces. Like everyone that you see here, we have Spaces daily show from 11 to 2, Monday through Friday. You catch us there. You can catch me owning the Huddle podcast over there with DT, but just Red Zone and Lab podcast wherever we are.
Good looking, man. Appreciate that, Deuce. And definitely check out those spaces. It's some funny stuff, man. They basically, I was reluctant to get into spaces for very, very long, but Deuce keeps on urging me to go. And actually, it's good talking there. I love going in there. All right, DH, man, plug your stuff, man. What are you up to?
Hey, everybody. Appreciate y'all for coming through and tuning in with the boys. I had a great time, G. Of course, y'all can catch me everywhere at D&D Football Podcast. We're Breaking Command. It's a bunch of episodes there, but me and my guy, D. Mitty, shout out to him for tuning in. Where we just talk Commander stuff. We're gonna have a lot of stuff coming up for the draft as well, some college talk, and all that. And then if you want to take a break from sports and you want to get to the comedy and the voiceover stuff, come on over to Instagram, holla at me. It's D Will on the mic, man. A lot of fun things happening there. So pull up on me, man. But yeah, I appreciate you for having me, G.
Of course, that was a blast, man. DT, what's up, bro?
Yeah, man. Appreciate it being on the show. You guys can follow my Instagram, ins and out with D_podcast. You can also follow me on Twitter at D Cleveland Jr. and at Darius Ricks. That's my podcast page. And on my podcast, man, I talk all NFL. I talk all the ins and out with a lot of players and things like that. Going to be starting interviewing some local guys who are doing the NFL draft. I got a friend that I went to school with from Old Dominion. He just declared a couple months ago. I'm getting ready to hit them up, some HBCU guys, show some HBCU love on the channel, things like that. And I'm going to have a bunch of guys up there. We're just going to talk about the offseason, what's going to happen.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate that. And good stuff. Definitely give him a follow. And guys, if you see on the bottom right here, I have all the hints for people that are on the show. Fantastic content. Guys, I'm George Carmi from Full Press Coverage. I write for fullpresscoverage.com. I'm the managing editor of Full Press Commanders. I also host the Command the Mic podcast on YouTube. Definitely give me a follow. I'm trying to grow that up a little bit. So thank you guys for listening. I had a blast tonight. Have a great rest of the night. Peace out.